to sit with us and be able to tell your story.
My
How's
pleasure.
everything? How's it going?
It's going good. I guess, it's always busy in the revolution, trying to work towards the revolution's never, you hardly ever get a moment, but it's good. It's good. All things are good.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? For those who don't know.
Well, I grew up in a small town in East Tennessee, and my family were sharecroppers. Uh, I was a single parent family, and I had three brothers, two sisters, and I pretty much started working in the field alongside them. Actually, when I was 3 years old. They couldn't do much, but my older sisters would watch me and my twin brother until we got old enough to slave away in the field.
Hold on, really quick. How old were you when you started working?
I went to the field when I was 3. I think I was probably about 5 when I could carry, maybe bags of beans or whatever down to the shed to get paid.
Wow. So the moment you was able to like physically start doing things was the
Yeah,
moment when you started going out there to provide for the family. How
yeah.
about?
We were sharecroppers. We were working for other people, other poor people beside us, and that's in the summertime, planting and the harvest. We would pool our money together at night, and that's how we would eat. So we were raised in poverty, pretty much. And I did that up until I was about 17 years old, and then that's when I headed to Chicago.
Around what year was this?
1967.
67.
Yeah, and there was a large migration from the south going into the north, which is called the migration circle, because a lot of people from the south, who were sharecroppers or people in the coal mines that's lost their jobs because of the mechanization of the mines and the farms and the textile mills and being taken over by big conglomerates. A lot of people lost their jobs, and so there wasn't much help for people during those times. So people were really dirt poor and had to go somewhere to find a job. And I ended up in Chicago in what's called the Uptown community, and I had an older brother who was there at the time, who had been a gang leader, and they're called peacemakers. But then later on, they got sort of indoctrinated to politics somewhat by Students for a Democratic Society that came into the community and started working with them, and I sort of fell right into that as I got there. I was very much harassed by the police, by the cops when I was there, when I first got there, and so the community itself was a very slum community. Wasn't far from where Cha-Cha and the Young Lords, they were changing at about the same time as some of us in Uptown were changing and beginning to get a political.
So you guys were transitioning around the same time.
We were transitioning into yeah, and some of the folks had been in jail. They had gotten some of the political education in jail. Others were like me. We were on the street all the time. There were no jobs, so we were doing a little bit of gang banging. We had to, we had to sell a little smoke here and there and do those kinds of things, just to survive. I remember selling blood.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. I heard you say that on an interview one time that you literally had to sell your own blood to make ends meet to put food on the table for the night.
Yeah, and there was during that period of time there's still some of them around, those day labor organizations where you could get a job for one day, which if you were lucky to get a job, which was the most dangerous work in the factory or wherever they placed you. And so right next door to these day labor agencies was always what they call blood banks. They would, buy the blood and sell it to, the hospitals or whoever they could sell it to. Excuse me. But a lot of us had to do that.
Wow.
Some of the families that, even that was on some type of public assistance, there were over 40,000 people from the South in this community. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay, you're good.
So
question.
Mm-hmm.
So was the move, and looking at it now, was the move worth moving to Chicago from Alabama? At that time, was it really worth?
It was definitely worth it because it set me on a lifelong trail of organizing. I got that's where I had to start dealing with racism, classism, and had to start learning about, the fascist system that oppressed us all and kept us down, police brutality. We were fighting the same thing that the Young Lords were fighting, was urban renewal, which, now it's called gentrification, I guess, but it was actually poor people's removal. They were taking our homes. They were actually burning buildings, they being the city and Chicago, Mayor Daley, and the police department and even the fire department. They were hiring, winos to go set fire to buildings in the Uptown community because they wanted the people to move out of the community so they could re-gentrify this community and put in a community college. Most of the Southern people lived right in the area where the community college is now, called Thurman. And they would come in and burn those buildings, and there were actually people burned up in those buildings.
Wow, and nobody was held responsible for
No, nobody was, and even some firemen were caught setting fire to buildings. And so what there were some slum landlords came in and bought a bunch of those buildings, for instance, and they would get it at a cheap price, torch the building, get insurance from the building, and sell the property.
That's the big scandal right there.
Back to the city.
That happened. I doing my research and history. That happening in the Bronx. Landlords, slumlords are setting fire to buildings in the Bronx, collecting the insurance. That was a big come up for them back in those days. Now I don't think it's as easy to get away with that. Yeah. But then it was definitely a thing for them to be able to go in there, do arsoning and be able to collect the insurance on it. Like that's crazy how the times has changed. Like how they were able to do that so blatantly and not held responsible for that.
Well, 2020, the TV show did an expose on it, and they found out that in the Uptown community, for instance, there was, I think, somewhere around 28 people, if I get this right, that were killed in these buildings. And these three landlords, these three owners were held responsible for it, but nothing was ever done. And they turned around and sued 2020 and got several $1 million out of that. Mayor Daley, he was a racist fascist. He didn't want poor people in his city. And so he wanted to bring an urban renewal and just literally bring the folks back into the city that had maybe gone to the suburbs, and bring them back into the city for tax purposes, of course.
To bring the money back into the city.
That was it. And so he unleashed his gang, which was the police department, Chicago Police Department. He was brought up through a gang called the Hamburgs. And so he knew a little bit about how gangs operated, but they called themselves an athletic association, when in actuality they were there to protect his Bridgeport neighborhood, in which was one of the neighborhoods that we joined in with the Young Lords and marched on his place. Of course, we were turned away by riot police because his off-duty cop had murdered Ramos, one of the members of the Young Lords. But one of our members of our group started we were always harassed. They've been always harassed and even murdered. The Chicago police had murdered several of our members. And so one of the first acts that the Young Patriots did, or we would call the good fellas at the time, had a march on the local police station on police brutality and murder. But that turned out to be a mistake because they just unleashed on us after that, and started jailing people and beating people, and actually murdered one of our people right after that.
It seems like the police department was really running wild at that time. Even the stories you hear about Fred Hampton and with the Chicago chapter went through, and with the Young Lords and with you guys, it's like the Wild Wild West over there with them.
Well, it's the only city that during the Democratic National Convention that was found that it was a police riot. It wasn't the people that rioted, it was the police that rioted. And it was proven. And so Mayor Daley, he was the gang leader, and he would instruct them to do whatever they wanted to do to us. I'd been beaten. I'd been, a lot of us had been jailed. We were always constantly getting harassed by the cops. They were raping women. They had an apartment there, the cops did, where they could take women for sex. And so it just kept going.
And this is all in the Uptown area, and also spread out throughout the city as well.
It was in the Uptown area, but it was happening in any poor community, so they were put there to oppress us and to keep us down. And one of the things that the cops were told to do, and I was told this by a cop, was that they were given a quota that they had to arrest and charge so many people, like parking tickets, because Mayor Daley used that to get federal funds to fund the police department.
Right.
And so we were victimized. We were just victims of this fascist police department. A lot hasn't changed. If you look at Chicago now, you'll see it's pretty much a lot of that has not changed, and it still happens. But we were suffering a lot of the conditions that Cha-Cha in his community was, and so are the Black communities, and so whatever was happening in their neighborhood was happening in my neighborhood too. And so we started organizing just a group of young people. I was 17 when I got there. When we started working on putting the Young Patriots together, I was 18. And I think the youngest member was probably 13. And the oldest was maybe 21, 22. but we were just a small group of young people who said that we have no other place to go, you know. We can't go back home. There's nothing there. And so we determined that we would fight the system. And so one of the things that we did was to counter the community college that was coming in. And we put together we got together with some other groups in the community and put together what was called the People's Village, which eventually became known as Hank Williams Village, because Hank Williams was a famous country performer. And so this was a village that was right in the area where the college was going to go. You can see it. It's called you can look it up, called the Hank Williams Village. We had plans, we had architects, and drew out plans for this village that would have its own town hall, would have its own, free health services, would have its own employment agency, it would have its own, its own citizens police force, basically. And it was designed after a southern town, and we would also have a hotel where if when migrants came, no matter who they were, immigrants, migrants, we put them up in a hotel until we can get them a job, to get them straight. And the powers to be, Mayor Daley with his urban renewal committees, looked at it and said, well, if you ever get funding for this, we'll take a look at it. And we did. We got some very big funders behind it. And at that time raised $250,000 for this village. But then, of course, they turned it down. But that was that was to help the people coming in, the poor people coming in. And that just put more pressure on us all the time from the cops. And the even the councilmen or aldermen, they call them, at that time would ride around the cops and beat people up. They were all connected. You couldn't get any good publicity out on what you were doing, because Mayor Daley and his regime controlled, the news media, which is pretty much like it is now. Even here in Alabama, where I'm at now, the news agencies they're in bed with the police. Anytime they want information, they don't come to you, they go to the cops. And so another problem we had was the stereotyping of the Southern white person. We referred to ourselves as hillbillies. A series of articles came out in the newspaper, calling us incestuous, dangerous people. Don't trust your daughter around us. We're lazy, and we're like a swarm of locusts that came in and took over the
other whites in Chicago looked at you guys differently.
I'm sorry?
I said, so other whites in Chicago looked at you guys differently.
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, and the reason, we couldn't find a job because of that stereotype, a lot of that. Plus, you can't plan on concrete. You can't get, you can't farm on concrete or anything. And that's what a lot of people had skills in. And so that Uptown community at that time in 1966, 67 through there was, the unemployment was 47%.
Wow.
There were more people out of a job in Uptown than there were jobs in Chicago. And so people were starving, literally. It had the highest infant mortality rate of any place in the country. And so we were living in these conditions of people who had moved. They couldn't get any medical services. A lot of them had black lung from the disease, from the mines, brown lung, from the textile mills, a number of diseases from lead poisoning and other types of poisoning from the runoff from the mines into the water streams, in the South. When the children would enroll in the school, they would automatically put them back 1 or 2 grades because they didn't think that they could keep up with their school system.
Wow.
Without testing the lead poisoning, which is also in the paint in the buildings. And so, it went on and on and on.
So the local government basically disregarded the community as a whole.
They didn't recognize us at all. And they used, I know they used the Uptown community, and they used Cha-Cha's community, and they used some of the Black communities as a pool for drafting into the military at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't about to, to get the middle class people.
Oh, so you can't help us, but you can recruit us.
Right. They kept us around as one of the things I write about, and I quote in my book called Revolutionary Hillbilly, was how they keep a certain number of white people around, to serve the empire, and to keep the economics going in this country, but also use us as bullet magnets for their empire. So that's what they did during the Vietnam War. And so, we were organizing, we were making quite a stir in the Uptown community. And that's when we got recognized, I think, by we were at a meeting and met Bobby Lee, who was one of the organizers from the Black Panthers, who had also been working with the Young Lords. And we formed a friendship, and eventually became a part of the Rainbow Coalition. Fred Hampton, when Bobby Lee had told Fred Hampton about us, he said, well, that's what we need. If we're going to have a revolution, you ain't going to do it without poor whites, and so Bobby Lee said, there's these crazy hillbillies up on the north side talking revolution, anti-racism, anti-classism. And he said, you got to talk to these guys. And so that's when he had talked to Hampton, had talked to Cha-Cha and said, you got to meet these guys. So
quick question before we get into that, because it's leading into that. I know at one point, your guys, the logo or you guys' symbol was a Confederate flag at one point.
Yeah.
I know there was a specific reason why you guys chose the Confederate flag.
Yeah.
So before we go into that, because I know that plays key also into the movement of the Rainbow Coalition.
Yeah. You see that flag was always around. I mean, it was down south. It was up north in the bars. It was all over the place, and most people looked at that flag, most people being from the South, as a part of a heritage, when in actuality, we started looking at that flag and looking at the Civil War, for instance, and seeing that, that we were glad that the South lost the war, because it was such a counter-revolutionary happening at that time. So we thought that what better way to try to organize racists and try to reach racist people. And there are a lot of them in this community. We're dealing with the Klan, we're dealing with the American Nazi Party, we're dealing with every kind of white supremacy group you can imagine. And so we were changing ourselves. I admit I was pretty much racist at one time, still am. But the thing is, you got to be anti-racist. I was raised in an environment where I was taught racism, and it's not anything that you can turn off and on a lot of times. I find myself now, walking down the street, see a group of black guys, and all of a sudden, it clicks, and I'm going, whoa, no, that's not bad. That's not bad. You got to work on it every day. You got to work on your racism. So in a lot of ways, it was hard for some of us, but we took that flag and we would put it on our our caps or our jackets that and we put it next to a free Huey button, or we'd have something like Cesar Chavez, with the migrant workers would or something from a third world country, and we'd have that flag on us, and we'd also have the sometimes the United States flag on us, and it was a contradiction, and we wanted it to be that way. And we would go into a bar or into a meeting or sometime and start a conversation. Okay. People would see it, they'd see a flag, they'd see the button, if they look kind of curious, we'd talk to them and say, hey, look, let's talk about this.
How'd that turn out?
Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but it kind of depended on what you were going to do and how far you wanted to push it.
But you guys stood by your guns on what you stood for.
We stood by it, and what we did was we asked him what does this flag mean to you? Well, it's part of my heritage. And we say, well, what if we told you that it was a racist flag that was invented by the plantation owners, or white supremacists, and some of them there were white supremacists. And say, yeah, okay, that's okay with me. But others would try to deal with it, and we'd start talking about. And an example that I always like to give, maybe I give it too much, but I remember getting into a conversation with a man who I knew he was a white supremacist. He didn't like anybody, and so I'd ask him. I said, okay, you think all people of color are bad except for the white people, evil? That's what you think. That's what he had been taught. And I said, I said, you have children? He said, yes. And I said, well, what if one of your children needed some type of an organ transplant to live? And they were going to die if they didn't get it. But the only place you could get it was from a person of color or a black person. Would you accept that? And he said, well, yeah, of course. And so it gave us an opportunity to talk about, okay, you're only seeing the color of the skin, and you're only seeing what you've been taught. But inside, we're all the same.
I preach that a lot. I really preach that, people need to stop looking for the differences and really look for the similarities. Because we all got something in common. We're all going to be different because we're all different. But I'm pretty sure if we really look at things, we all got something in common. We need to build off that instead of being negative all the time. And
that's what we started building off of, and that's what we started building off of with the Rainbow Coalition, was the commonalities.
Right.
Okay, so it gave us an opportunity to get together with other groups that we normally would not have any association with. And you got to understand, we were still learning too. We were still changing. We were still trying to figure out what it was all about. But we were looking at, okay, these folks got the same problems we got. We might have it a little better because we've got white skin. This is pretty bad, in Chicago, because it was the #1 segregated city, I think. Maybe not the #1. I think probably down south here is, but
it's still up there.
Yeah, it's still up here, and so when Bobby Lee went to Hampton, Chairman Fred said, "Yep, let's get together. Let's see what we can put together." And so I had a conversation. opportunity to have a little bit of a conversation with Fred. You know, it's very hard to catch him. You know, he was all over the place. He was everywhere. And he welcomed us into this coalition. And I asked him, I said, why? He said, man, don't you know, we're the Southern people. We oppressed you. We enslaved you. We killed you. We sold you. You were our property. You know, we raped your women. You know, we sold your children. I said, why on earth would you ever allow us into a coalition like this? And he said, well, very simple. He said, I know you guys are racist. He said, but what I know about you is you're anti-racist. And he said, I never will forget it. He said, I can look past that because I have to look to the revolution. And we ain't gonna have a revolution without you folks. He said, so in our eyes, you're equal as we are. You know, and that really made a lot of difference, you know, with us working in the Rainbow Coalition at that point. Then from that point, we started getting together with, you know, with the Young Lords. We were involved in their some of their marches. Manuel Ramos March on the, you know, Mayor Daley's neighborhood. We were at the McCormick Theological Seminary when they took it over. We have been seen doing security work side by side. The Black Panthers, we served as security detail for them with our flag, you know, but we eventually grew out of that. Okay, we realized that, okay, it served its purpose. This is something we wanted to do. And it did make a difference with some people because it managed to get some of the people thinking about class consciousness, racism, and that type of thing. So we eventually said, you know, we can't use this anymore because this is a symbol of slavocracy. You know, we just can't do it because it's hurting other people. And so
it worked for the moment for what you guys were initially using it for. To carry on with it, you seen that it wasn't going to work for you guys.
Yeah, it worked in our community. It wouldn't work in any other community, but it did work in that community. And so we terminated the use of that flag, and we started progressing more and more toward free health clinics, our free health clinic, our breakfast for children program.
So question before we lead a little bit on, because in the beginning, once you guys started initially with the Rainbow Coalition and started working together, obviously the Young Lords and the Panthers also went to Uptown to be able to help you guys with certain services and doing certain programs. How did the community receive other minorities, you know, coming into the community?
Well, there's a documentary made called American Revolution 2. They have it at the Chicago Film Archives. You may be able to get it on YouTube, but it shows American Revolution 2. Part of that is where we first met Bobby Lee, okay, at this church. And we were talking to a pretty much white liberal upper middle class group that continued to tear us down as white hillbillies. And Bobby Lee stood up and defended us. We didn't know he was going to be there. We didn't know the Panthers were going to even be there. But Howard Hawk and Mike Gray of the film group got wind of it, and they had done some documentaries, and they said, we're going to go over and film this thing, and about how the hillbillies and the blacks are going to get together here. And it documents several meetings that we had with the Black Panthers and we got together a community meeting of several hundred people. It's, you know, I have to say this about Judas and the Black Messiah. It's a piece of crap. It's bad. It's bad. And for one of the reasons is when they had the scene in there about the Young Patriots, huge Confederate flag on the wall. One guy tries to start a fight, you know, with the Black Panther. You know, first of all, Chairman Fred never came to Uptown. We didn't want him in Uptown for safety reasons. Okay, he was just too important of an individual. We didn't want him to get in the situation. But we had a meeting of several hundred people in the community who were able to pull together, because at that time, the Young Patriots had started getting quite a reputation, you know, in the community for serving the community. And so we were able to pull a bunch of people together, mostly Southern white people. And Bobby Lee comes in, got his beret on, him and Poison, you know, and Ruby, they come in, they got, you know, got the berets on, their leather jackets, and they're walking around, and people are just looking at them like, oh man, you know, because people kind of thought of the Black Panthers as being a gang, you know, and I know there was a lot of racism in the room, but as it turned out, at the end of the meeting, it was unity.
I think I've seen clips maybe in the first Rainbow Coalition documentary. I seen Bobby Lee speaking. It looked like the Uptown area. It
is, and if you get a chance to see the rest of the movie, you'll find out that one of the things we did was we were talking about police brutality, and we got together with a meeting with the local police commander there, and we got Bobby Lee to be our police brutality spokesman. As you know, he's a Black man. He's in a white Southern
community being represented.
Being represented. So we wanted to make that statement.
You guys must have really confused the police department.
Oh, we did. we confused them a lot. And not only that, but at one meeting, Bobby Lee had gone outside to his car for something, and the cops nabbed him, threw him in the back of a patrol car.
Wow.
And somebody said, they've arrested Bobby. And well, there were about 50 of us went out there and surrounded the police car and said, you're not going anywhere. You're going to take us on. And so it was from there, the brotherhood started, I think. You know,
started building that bond, that camaraderie.
Right. And then we started building that with Cha Cha and the Young Lords, with David Rivera. You know, I've known David for a long time, you know, and others. And we started supporting them, you know, started supporting whatever we could do. Now, one of the unique things that we did, you know, as the Rainbow Coalition is the Rainbow Coalition wasn't really meant to have a leader. But although because of the, you know, charisma of, you know, of Fred, he became the leader, and we didn't want a leader because the leader would get picked off real quick. We knew it. Yeah. As we saw.
Especially at that time.
Especially at that time. And so we would join in with the Panthers or join in with the Lords and become one of them. We would, people identify as a Panther, but we would be identifying with whoever group we were with, you know, because.
Yeah, Dave, I've had conversations with David Rivera about that. He said, you know, whenever you guys did things together, he's like, you're a Lord, but for that day, you was a Patriot or you was a Panther. You know, you was a Lord, but at that event or whatever they're hosting, you're with them. So you are what they are.
Right. And that's so we would not. The thing we want to do about that was that's so we wouldn't disagree with them. You know, if you're one of them, you're going to become one of them. You're not going to tell them your philosophy of your organization.
Right.
And because what we did was we developed our point program off of the Black Panthers. So our point program was a little different because it was a different community, but it was a commonality with the Panthers and with the Lords. Later on, there were organizations like Rising Up Angry that came in that identified more with the Young Lords, and took their program from them. Others, rainbow coalitions around the country, but the three main organizations that started that was the Panthers, the Lords, and the Patriots. And we were the ones that got hit the hardest. I don't think anybody in any of the other organizations like Rising Up Angry got killed, but we had some of our members killed, the same as the Panthers and the Lords, and we had one man, for instance, who even went down to see his family in Georgia, and somebody stood up, and he was actually at a restaurant, and somebody there said, "There's old John. He's that inn lover from Chicago." Because everywhere we would go, the feds or the cops would call the local police department, or the federal or the FBI, and let them know we were there. He was found a couple of days later.
Basically setting you guys up for failure, for something to happen to you guys.
He set us up. John was found a couple of days later with his throat cut. Another one happened to one of our members in West Virginia that moved back home, tried to start a free health clinic, and he was found execution style, shot in the back of the head. And I tried to go back to my hometown because it got hot on us, and I had to go sort of underground. And I went back to my hometown and had to leave there because the cops were on me. So,
question, before you go back home. So the Rainbow Coalition in Chicago must have really put the pressure on the Chicago PD and also the councilman and the mayor of Chicago.
Yeah.
So is that why they turned up the heat on you guys and put more pressure, and was able to turn it up the way they did?
Well, they put more heat on us because we were putting the heat on them. You see, we went looking for it. I mean, we went looking for the challenge.
You guys were tired of the situation.
Yeah, got tired of the situation. We knew they were going to have some meetings. We'd go into them. We go to the city council meetings, raising hell down there a little bit that we could.
So I just want to clarify, because a lot of people, you hear the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, the Patriots,
Mm-hmm.
they automatically assume radicalness. They assume the gangs. So if the city would have complied with the Uptown and with the Lincoln Park and the South Side, if they would have complied with the communities, would you guys have to have taken it up a notch the way you guys had to if the city would have helped your communities?
No. We were trying to get them to start the programs. Like in Uptown, the Chicago Board of Health opened up a free clinic. We had a free clinic, and Mayor Daley's made a statement that there's no slums in Chicago, no poor people. And we opened up the free health clinic, and it made them look bad. The city made the city look bad. And so they had gotten these millions of dollars before to actually open up clinics, but they never did. And so they opened up a board of health clinic not far from us, but Uptown lies on the Gold Coast, pretty much Lakeshore Drive. It's very wealthy people over there, which is a mile from Uptown. And so they opened it up in that area. They didn't put it in a poor area. And they would only see, 20 people a day or something, some crazy number. When people would, like some of the people from Uptown would go there, they wouldn't treat them. They'd say that they didn't have time, or they'd tell them to go home and take a bath, or something like that. It was just very degrading. And so I even I myself, I had gotten a broken hand, and I went to the hospital in the area, and because I didn't have any insurance, they taped my fingers together and left me with, I can only have 80% of the use of the hand now, but they didn't x-ray, they didn't do anything. They just sent me out the door. And 2 days later, the cops came to me wanting to know if I had been in a gang fight, because they were telling the cops, the hospitals were telling the cops, anytime somebody came in there with an injury, they'd tell the cops who they were and where they lived.
Really quick, if there's anybody listening, if we got a good lawyer out there and he can make some money off this, contact Thurman, because I think that the hospital owes him a check. 80% use of his hands is unacceptable.
Yeah. And that's people were dying, in these, trying to get into these hospitals. So we actually got together with the doctors and the nurses and social workers that were working with the clinic and took over that Board of Health clinic. And the doctors that were there offered to help. And they said, no, you can't, because you haven't been cleared by the Board of Health. And so we had 26 people arrested.
So they were ready to do pro bono work for free and come help the community.
Yeah.
And they said no.
Right.
Even though you're certified and you're a doctor, you're not cleared.
Right. And also, there's one doctor that I still is a very good friend of mine, Dr. Brinkman. He's in Chicago. I talked to him this morning, actually. We're still good friends. And I wasn't at this meeting, but he and some of the other Young Patriots and the doctors and nurses were having a meeting. And the cops came in and just almost broke the door down, and didn't realize that these were doctors there. And they said, well, we heard you were having a big party, and there wasn't a party going on. It was a planning meeting for the clinic.
Wow. And
one of the doctors was running for state's representative. So, he was very upset about it. And everywhere that we would go, for instance, to set up a clinic, if it was in an apartment or wherever, the cops would come around and pressure the owner of the building to kick us out. They did that with the health clinic. They did that with the Breakfast for Children program. And we had lawyers. We managed to get some lawyers and we helped set up the Uptown People's Law Office, which is going today. It's still going. And we were able to have some legal representation, but, we were harassed in other ways too, because, let me just get into this police harassment a little bit if I can.
No, yeah. The floor is yours.
How serious it was. Me and two other male Young Patriots and a female Patriot was stopped by the cops. And the only thing the cop did was walk up and look in the car and told the driver, said, come back here, get in the squad car. And so when he went back there, the cops, oops, I lost your picture there somehow. There it is. The cops said, held up a bag of pills, because people were taking a lot of uppers and downers at that time. And he said, we're going to charge you with this unless you let us fuck the girl that's in the car with you. And that's the way they were. And this was Bobby McGinnis, he said, well, let me go back and talk to these guys about it. So he went back, and when he did, by that time another squad car had pulled up, and there were 4 cops. They were going to just gangbang her, and so we outran them. I mean, we got in the car and we ran, and we managed to lose them. But I just got true story. Another story was some of me and a couple of other people went up to a university in Rockford, Illinois, to show the film American Revolution 2 to raise some money. A party afterwards. Okay, we went to a party, and when we went to leave, we were surrounded by cops. You know, and they put us in the squad car, wouldn't tell us what in the world we were charged with. As it turns out, it was a setup by one of the students in the school, but they put us in a cell. And about, I don't know, 1, 2 in the morning, somewhere in there, they started taking us in one at a time, and there were 2 FBI agents in the room with the sheriff. And they said that they're going to charge us with burglary. We said, we didn't break into any place. They said, well, we have these 2 collector's coins that was found in the car. And I get this, in the back seat of the car that they put us in. So therefore, they said we stole it out of this place. And we said, you know, you gotta be out of your mind.
And the place that you was in.
Well, yes, the party.
Okay.
And it didn't make any sense. We said, we don't know anything about this coin. They said, but also we have a bag of white powder here that we found in your car. And the man that owns this car, we borrowed it. He said he was the editor of the Vietnam GI newspaper, anti-war paper. They said he had just gotten back from Cuba. And he did. He took a trip to Cuba. And they said, so we're going to charge you with transporting drugs and dispensing drugs and all this other stuff. And they said, well, you can get a lot of time out of this, but if you work for us, we'll make it all go away. So their whole purpose was to try to get us to be informants for them. That wasn't the first time. They were doing that a lot. And then we had a lawyer to come, and he said, you know, you can charge these guys, or I'm just going to file a discriminatory suit against you, false arrest. And so they couldn't hold us. And they said, by the way, what is this powder we've been trying to analyze here? We've analyzed it for every drug you can imagine. They said it's dog flea powder, you know, that the guy had for his dog, but they wanted to charge us. And if we had not had a good lawyer, they probably would have, you know,
just looking for anything, planning things on you guys.
Yeah.
They were doing a bunch of things out there, man. The Chicago PD, like I said, even now, like you hear things about them. So I can imagine when it was at the time that you guys were out there, like,
yeah,
it's crazy the amount of things they got away with.
Well, they would literally break people's fingers, break people's hands. They beat people, put a phone book over your head and beat it till you lose consciousness.
So the city really expected for you guys not to like fight back or to do anything about it. They really expect you guys to like just sit there and just take all of that.
Yeah, that's what they expected. And of course, we did some things that I'm not going to get on recording, but you know, we had to fight back a lot of times. And I was talking with one of the Panthers there, and he was telling me that they've been known to pull people's fingernails out over on the south side. And one of the things that came down was if the cops stopped you and you went toward your pocket, that would give them a reason to shoot you. And sometimes they didn't need that reason, but Fred Hampton and others started sewing their pockets together because they would shoot you. You know, they didn't care. And they were told,
you know, my pocket's so shut, I can't reach for anything in there.
That's right. And you had to go to that you know, those measures. There were black ops around at that time. People would disappear. I mean, the other technique they had was they'd take one of the people from the Young Patriots and take them over into a black gang neighborhood, take all the identification, money, drop them off. And it got to where every community knew what the cops were doing. So, and they even did it to one of our female Young Patriots, dropped her off. And, yeah, you know, what are you gonna do? You don't know anybody. You don't know what to do. You don't know, you know, you're scared. And a woman, you know, there was a woman came up and said, I know what they're doing, honey. Said, here, we're going to take you to the train station, give you money, and you can go back home. And so we did that too with them, you know, and they were pulling those kind of tactics all the time. And so it was total fascism. It's the only thing I can say. It was like living in a fascist state, you know. It's like living under Trump, you know. What can you say, you know? So, but anyway, that's just the tip of the iceberg of the way that the police were treating us. And you know about the Young Lords. You know how, you know, the pastor and his wife were murdered. You know how other people were beaten and killed. And we know what happened to Brother Fred, Mark Clark. You know, we know all that. And so when that started happening and we found out about Chairman Fred and Brother Mark Clark, we were like, we better get loaded here. I mean, we better load up because we don't know what's going to happen to us next. And so some of us did. We kept waiting, and nothing happened for a few days. But then, you know, shit hit the fan once we started getting back on the street and stuff. And so we were threatened so much that I had to move out of the neighborhood. I eventually ended up going back south, you know, and living in the South up until about, well, living around the country, let me put that, till about 10 years ago when I came back out and moved here to Alabama and started reorganizing. You know, of course, I was always organizing underground with free food programs. And
I want to go a little bit into, well, we don't have to go into details, but I just wanted to touch a little bit about going underground. Because, you know, I've spoken to David, I've spoken to Omar Lopez, I've spoken to Tony Vice, and it's, you know, they tell me all the time after Chairman Fred was assassinated, you know, they had to go underground. They had to hide. They had to, you know, out of sight.
Yeah.
And for a couple of years, some people longer than others, but people had to like disappear. How was that for you? And did you have to go through the similar things?
Yeah, I was married, had a young child, and we moved back to my home. Thought, well, I'm going back to my hometown for a while. I couldn't buy a job there. You know, they already knew who, you know, knew who I was and what I was doing. My sister had gotten harassed because I had been sending her some Black Panther papers and underground papers. And actually the sheriff and the postmaster came to her house and threatened her, told her not to ever accept any more of those papers. And she said, I'll accept anything I get. I don't give a damn. You know, you can't tell me what to do. And so they had continuously followed me and harassed me. And I only lived there about 3.5 weeks or so. And one of the people that I knew that I grew up with who was close to the police department told me that they were making plans to get me. My wife.
Like arrest you or harm you?
Well,
or both.
Both. They just said they're out to get you. They're making plans. And my wife had gotten a job right away for some reason when we got there. And this was with a man that was the former juvenile judge in the town. Knew me very well, knew my family very well because he had sent a couple of my families up, false charges. And so
he hired your wife?
he hired my wife, which I think we found kind of strange.
I found strange today.
Well, what happened? But here's what happened. She came home and she said, after about 2 weeks, she said, "Wow, I found a file in his, office with your name on it." And I said, "Oh yeah." She said, "Yeah, it's got all your FBI information and everything in there." So they were keeping an eye on me.
Keeping her close, keeping you close.
Yeah, and even today now, I went and I said, I'm gonna see what happens. About 5 years ago, I went and applied for a gun permit. Got turned down.
Yeah, I flagged right away.
Yeah, and I said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, burglary up in Rock Island where I'd been, they turned to get us." And they said, and for disorderly conduct, which was true. I was getting in a fight with the landlord.
Yeah, but they can restrict you from getting a gun permit for a disagreement with somebody.
Yeah, but the problem is, I went and through the Freedom of Information Act, I got in touch with the Chicago Police Department and the clerk up in Rock Island, and they didn't have a case of it. They didn't know anything about it, but they said you're on the FBI list. And so I'm still on the FBI list. And so because of that, they gave me my permit.
Oh, they gave it to you. Oh, so, don't worry about it. The feds is watching you anything. You do anything, we got you anyway.
Yeah. So wow. I'm like, oh, okay. But, it's even today, I know of other people that's on a Fed list. We get every once in a while when I get on the plane, it's like, man. You'd think you just committed.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
So, but I went back home. And after that, when I got that notice, we left. We left at night. We said, we're getting out of here. And I went to Georgia, got a few jobs here and there. Started, my wife could always get a job. And then started.
It's always a little bit easier for females to get jobs over males sometimes.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but sometimes it's a little bit more easier.
It was for her. I mean, she, so, and, I took a job because I had to have a job, and that was with the Boy Scouts of America.
So you was a Boy Scout too?
I wasn't when I was younger. I didn't have a clue what it was. I didn't know what they do. But they made a mistake because I had a brother there and knew the guy hiring, and he says, "Okay, we'll get him." But they put me out at Fort Stewart, which is a military base. They made a mistake in doing that because I started organizing soldiers and get the anti-war soldiers. Got fired.
Wow.
Got fired
right away.
Went to then I just went into the automotive retail business. And then I had an opportunity. I came back to Chicago, not Chicago, but I had to live out in the suburban areas out around Aurora and those places. I was volunteering for the homeless in one of their kitchens, and for some right reason, the guy that's director of one of these programs said, "Do you know anything about fundraising?" I said, "Yeah, I know a little bit." He said, "Well, I got a position open I want to talk to you about." And so this was in Aurora, where I was in charge of over 100 men in this program who had all kinds of addictions, criminal records, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, I got a job there and I worked there for about a year developing a computer program, learning center for them. Mm. And then I went on to some other churches, and I actually had another ministry that I did for a while. And then, I just wandered around the country a lot, working mostly in these automotive retail stores. So I always kept low, and but they always kept tabs on me. They knew where I was at. They let me know that too sometimes. But when I was
just to remind you, just a friendly reminder.
just a friendly reminder. And then I moved here in Huntsville, Alabama, about 10 years ago, and I actually came back out doing organizing because I saw a book called Hillbilly Nationalists that was written about the Young Patriots, and I thought, I didn't even know there's anything written about it. I didn't have a clue. I thought everybody just forgot about us. I really had not kept up with it that much, and so I came here and started organizing. And so what I do now is the first program I organized here was a Young Patriot chapter, and then I had organized a homeless construction coalition that built platforms for people to put their tents on and, to keep them dry when it rained. I also had an organization that I kept up called Blues to Bluegrass, which we have here now too. We're doing a benefit this month. We organize musicians to do benefits for community organizations. So, on the 29th, we have a big concert coming up. It's usually a 9 to 10 hour concert with different musicians, and the money goes toward, many different types of services. There was a free health clinic here too. And they were not aware of any health clinics, so we had to educate them and, did a benefit for them. And the other one I started was called the North Alabama School for Organizers, in which we literally try to teach people to be organizers, the different roles of organizers in progressive and revolutionary politics. And now what's coming out of that is in about a week, we're going to kick off another program called the Free Automotive Clinic. And we're fixing homeless people's cars so they can get to work, get jobs, and we're raising money to do that. So we also heavily involved right now in Jeffrey Parker was a Black man who had some mental problems. He was threatening to kill himself, and there were 2 cops showed up and was talking him out of it. They just about had him talked out of it, and this other cop came up, this hard-ass cop, took his shotgun out of his car, walked in there and blew the guy's face off. What happened is Jeff, the cop, was found guilty of murder. Okay. Now here's the crazy part. He's still on the police force. He hasn't been sentenced. The city council.
Oh, they're going to sentence him?
They're going to, but the city council pays his legal fees.
Yeah, but how is he still like active duty? If you're found guilty at this point, like you shouldn't be holding a gun, a badge,
right,
handcuffs, a walkie-talkie. I don't even think he should have a pen and pad.
He shouldn't have. But the mayor of the city and the police chief, they're trying to cover it up because they don't want any negative that we can figure out. They don't want any negative publicity for this town because this is a space station town. This is NASA. They put people on the moon from here. And
so it's a reputation they got to uphold.
Right. And we're organizing around that issue. So that's coming out of the school that we set up.
Man, you're really busy, man. You've been doing this, 50 plus years, man, and you're still at it.
About 50 years. Also, we just organized the Committee of Rainbow Elders that you know about.
Yeah, I do.
to help if we can help anyway. We can to help you, the Rainbow Coalition, the Second Rainbow Coalition.
I think the Rainbow Coalition is definitely important. I think people need to, study and learn about the Rainbow Coalition and seeing how people, like I say all the time, coming from, everyone's different. So coming from different backgrounds, being brought up differently, going through different struggle, to be able to still find the things we have in common, the same things we struggle on. So I think that's very important, especially in today's age, for to be able to have that a unit strong enough. You have to have people from different backgrounds, different struggles to be able to come together. Because without that, you're gonna keep doing it by yourself, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Look at the impact that you guys have created in Chicago with the first Rainbow Coalition. You really put the pressure on the city and the mayor that they had to do something about it. That means you guys were doing something that worked. And I think we need to really highlight those things to be able to reflect it on today. Because I think a lot of things are different. We are in a new era, but a lot of things are the same. We just going through it a little bit different. But it's the same police brutality, same racism, same poverty, same struggle. We're going through the same things, saying we still have slumlords. That hasn't gone away either. We have lack of medical care in our community. That hasn't gone away either.
Capitalism.
It's something, like I said, the Rainbow Coalition is very important. I really recommend whoever's out there, if you don't know, and this is the first time you're hearing about the Rainbow Coalition, do your homework, see why it worked, see why it was so important to destroy. Because it's very important to have people to come together.
Yeah. All right. I only have another 50 years to look forward to organizing. So
listen, man, we still got you here.
I'm not quitting.
No, it's in your DNA by now.
And the thing is, there's a lot of people that don't know what to do or where to start. And Bobby Lee, he told me this, and I use it a lot too. It's in the First Rainbow Coalition documentary. He said, you go out and you go to your front door and look out, and you go to your back door and look out. You go to your left and look out, and you go to your right and look out, and then pick a direction, because somebody here needs some help, and that's very true. Somebody needs help somewhere, that you can help. And that's where it all starts, because, you got to give people something a lot of times before they'll do anything. And that's why these survival program, pending revolution programs that we had were so important, with all the programs that the Panthers had and the Young Lords had, the Patriots and others, the draw.
And believe it or not, I think those programs are still key today. I think we still lack a lot of those programs and a lot of that help in our communities today. And especially, I don't understand why, if we're in a day and age where the government should be able to, if they can pay everybody a stimulus right now, they could be able to open up recreation centers, put more money into the schools, being able to uplift our communities. But obviously they don't. So these survival programs, even today, are needed.
That's right. And that's why I think this automotive free clinic that we're doing is going to be so powerful here. You have somebody fix their car, they can get to work. The old cycle is, person doesn't have a car to go to work, they lose their job, they lose their apartment, they're on the street. They've got to rely on friends and relatives or whoever. And the next thing you know, they can even have their kids taken away from them. This can lead into all kinds of mental health problems and drug problems and everything else. And it can all be.
It's something as simple as a car, something as simple as a motor vehicle.
Simple. But I think that's what we have to, our slogan with the North Alabama School for Organizers is educate to organize. We gotta constantly educate and re-educate, a lot of people. I got a brother, the same brother that was in Chicago that got involved in politics. He's now a Trump supporter, so we got to re-educate people,
Yeah.
as well as educating people, and that's it. That's very simple. That's what we got to do, and not really be afraid of speaking up sometime.
I think that's one of the most important things. I think people need to start speaking up. You see something, say something, and and I think it's important, especially dealing with the police, dealing with the government. It's a lot of the times, we feel like they can do that, so we don't say anything, or we don't do anything, or we don't record it, or we don't fight against it, because we already used to taking it so much that we're just like, what it is, what it is. I'll roll over, whatever. Something else will happen tomorrow, and I think we have to get out that mind frame, and I think we really have to really start standing up for ourselves. I'm not saying go shoot up anybody or go beat up police. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, you guys, we really need to start being boisterous and coming together to really make these differences. Because if we all staying quiet, don't expect change. Don't be upset when something doesn't go our way for the community. But if we say something, that's where the change is going to happen.
And one of the worst phrases that I hear is, well, that's just the way it is. It doesn't have to be that way,
Or it is what it is.
It is what it is. I remember that one. And what it was and what it will be, that was a big one back then.
But it all revolves around the same thing. Things are what you allow it to be, and that's what people have to understand. People do what you allow them to do to you.
Yeah.
So I think we have to get out that state of mind where we're okay with things just happening to us.
Yeah.
And that's not saying nothing.
Very simple things. This button behind me, that's a Rainbow Coalition button. It wasn't always that. The way it started was a Nixon Agnew button. The president, when Nixon was running for president, we had so many of these buttons in our community, we just painted all these colors on
it. And covered it up.
Unity.
Free buttons for the revolution.
See, Nixon, he didn't realize he contributed to this revolution.
Listen, he may never know. But it happened.
It happened. Yeah, it happened. But yeah.
So if somebody wanted to get in contact with you to be a part of these programs and stuff in Alabama, how do they reach you?
My email is YPO, which is Young Patriot Organization, YPO1967 @gmail. That's the best way. Or, they can look us up. YPORC.org is our website too. But if they wanted to check out the school, it would be NASO.network. North Alabama School for Organizers, or they can look that up. Yeah.
Okay.
Or just Google my name, I guess I can too.
So before we get away, I know we're already like an hour and something in. I know you have a book, and you mentioned it earlier in the interview, Revolutionary Hillbilly. The cover work is amazing. I actually use it for the flyer. You want to touch a little bit about the book without giving too much of the book, so people can go out there and purchase?
Yeah, the book itself was written. I wanted to write a book that could be very simple. A non-academic book where you had to use a dictionary every other word. And I wanted it to where, anybody could pick it up and read it and understand it. And it is about mostly, it's my memoirs, basically, in what I experienced, the same we're talking about here, a lot of it, is in that book. And it just shows how a group of just poor folks, can get together and make an impact, just by getting with other groups and forming coalitions, you know. And the conclusion of the book, I think, is very important because I talk about how I think there's so much that's been written about the poor people and about the movement. It's time for the poor people to write about themselves, you know, and that's what I would hope would happen, you know, with this kind of a book, that people read it. It's a very easy read. You know, it's this chunk full of all kinds of information and just the whole structure of what we went through, you know, and in hopes of giving the main purpose of it too is that it can be a resource book, or it can be, you know, an encouragement, you know, for people who are in any kind of organizing or social services, you know, now. And that's the reason I wrote it as a revenge. Okay. Revenge. I said, Mayor Daley, you son of a bitch, I'm gonna get you one of these days.
Letting it out on the table.
I put it right out there in that book, you son of a bitch. You know.
Listen. What's the quote? It is what it is.
It is what it is. You know. And I got my revenge. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're planning.
I think that's very important. I think that it's important to hear it from the horse's mouth. One, meaning you guys, you know, directly. I know you guys can't talk about everything, you know, but it is important that people hear what you guys went through, the pieces that they can hear, you know, that they do get this information. Because before I got into the whole I didn't know who they were, you know. It's not in your face. It's not something that's taught. It's, unless you're looking for it, you're not gonna find it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's sad, because you guys make differences. You know, you guys change society.
Yeah.
You know, in a big way. All the survival programs have became government programs.
Yeah.
They model majority of your programs into society, you know. Free breakfast for kids, you know, health clinics, you know, things like that you guys implemented first, that you needed it in the communities. They went, shut it down, took the idea, implemented it in their communities.
Yeah, it wasn't any rocket scientists. It's just that these are the needs. We need
basic necessities, you know, basic needs that people need. I think that's huge. I think a lot of people now have an issue, you know. Everyone wants to start organizing. You know, everybody has this idea of organizing and being a revolutionary, and, you know, all these things that they want to do. The first and the biggest step is doing something in your community. You know, it's not about how big you do something. It's about the consistency, how many times you reach that one person or that group of people. You think they're going to give a damn about one person who attended them one fucking time, excuse my language? They're not going to care about that. But if you have somebody who's coming down, consistently caring about the community, consistently trying to help you out, you're going to be more open to receive that person.
Sure.
Versus somebody who comes up to you. Come on, we people with pride. Somebody comes up to you, even if we need the help, we're not going to want the help. But if we see somebody we're familiar with, and somebody who really shows that they care, people are more open to dealing and receiving those services. And I think that's a big thing where people today are organizing, have to really have that understanding. You know, you have to be a humanitarian to be a revolutionary, because without the people, you can't be a revolution. You have to have the mind state for the people. And I think that's super important.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the old saying is, if you want to see a change in your community, you have to be the change. You know, you got to be the one to change it.
You can sit here and talk all day about it, right?
Yeah.
But until somebody go do something, man.
That's right.
And I'm tired of people knocking, you know, people who are going to try even with the smallest things. You know, don't judge somebody if you're not willing to go out there your damn self and go do what that person's doing or more.
That's right.
You know,
if you can't do something, at least help them financially or something to get it done. You know, that's why I get so mad at these latte liberals. You know, they want to sit around and drink their lattes, and if they go by, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them, if they go by a demonstration or something or give something here, wow, I really did something today, you know. You got to do more than that. You know?
Yeah, it's
You
like I
know,
said, things got to change. I think things have been changing. I think the work you guys put in, it definitely wasn't for anything because what has us today, why a lot of the rights we do have to be able to be in society today, the things we wanted to do, things that we were restricted of, being able to go into certain communities, being able to get certain jobs, work in certain industries, you know, all of that's kind of changed, right? But it's not where we want it to be.
right.
So there's still room for more growth and more change and more development.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Cha-Cha never gave up, you know.
No, he doesn't. He
He ran
doesn't.
for alderman up there in Uptown, you know, and came back and ran. I wasn't there at the time, but he ran for alderman, came back. He did a excellent oral history of, you know, the community and did a lot of organizing. You know, he didn't give up. Some of the Panthers are still around. They're still organizing, you know, so.
Listen, Cha-Cha has a archive, I think, with DePaul University, and he has hundreds of interviews with activists, revolutionaries, people from the community. So people like you, Cha-Cha, you guys don't stop. You know, you guys continue to work. You know, I can list a whole bunch of names more, but people like you, the individuals, that's something that's in you guys. That's second nature to you.
Yeah, it's in our DNA or something. Either that or insanity.
Listen, man. Listen. No, it's not insanity because you know what? You guys trying different ways. You're not trying the same way over and over again. If you try the same way over and over again and you keep failing, that's insanity. But if you're trying different ways, it's not technically insanity. It's just a bunch of hurdles in the way.
Yeah, I also have on this North Alabama School for Organizers, we have a series of fireside chats where we've interviewed people.
Okay.
And I want to encourage people to go on there and just look at some of them. September, I'm dedicating it to the Second Rainbow Coalition. And I want to talk to you about coming on my fireside chat next month.
Okay.
We've already got, you know, the new African Black Panther Party signed up. We want
to shout out to Shaka.
Yeah.
Shout out to Shaka, the chairman for the new African Black Panthers.
And we're gonna get, you know, the White Panthers and get AIM on there, you know, and talk about this new Second Rainbow Coalition that I think
it's important. It's important to pick up the work. It's important to speak about it. It's important for the people to be informed about what's going on.
Yeah.
You know.
So, but you know, thanks for having me.
No, listen, thank you for coming up here and giving everybody your story and to sharing with us, man. I get to talk to you personally, so you know I feel like I know you already. So when I see you, I'm gonna just give you a big hug. But it was definitely, I think, needed for the people to hear. You know, for the people who follow me, for the people just out there to really hear what it takes for people to really come together from different backgrounds and to be able to put their differences aside. Like that's huge for me. And I was really looking forward to this interview, and I'm definitely happy with the interview, the outcome of it. Like, it's really what the people need to hear. We have to stop putting things to make each other to go against one another. That's not going to help any community.
That ain't gonna help. That does not. And it happens.
No, it happens. But you know what? Things are changing. They're starting to teach certain things in school that we didn't think they was going to teach, you know, like even for the young lords. I know in Chicago, they're teaching, I know they're doing a course now. I know Joanna Fernandez is a part of it. She's doing a course in Chicago with the students over there. But I also know college students in Latin American history are being taught about the young lords. And I think that needs to be brought in with the Young Patriots, and I think the Black Panthers. I think the schools really need to show how we was able to develop, because we wasn't able to develop to where we are today if it wasn't for for the groups and these organizations coming in and telling you what they needed, instead of just you guys thinking that everything is all peachy and creams because you guys benefit from everything and fuck everybody else. Excuse my language.
No,
so I think it's important for people to really be informed about this. This is something in history that they don't want us to know.
No, they sure don't.
So, and there's a reason.
Oh yeah, there's a reason. You know, that's what they're trying to do now, is try to keep history from getting into the schools, you know, and all that. But we can fight it. You know, and I am so you just don't know how proud I am of you and the folks in the Black Panthers and the AIM and, you know, the White Panthers, you know, that's continuing this legacy. It really, really means a lot, you know, that 50 years later, look at it, here we are, you know.
Listen, I gotta even stop you there. I have these conversations with David all the time. You don't even know what it means to, I mean, I'm gonna say us because I feel like I can speak for everyone, for you guys to even embrace us. You guys could have told us, I dealt with this 50 years, fuck off, I don't want to deal with this shit no more. You know, this the reality of it, you know? But you guys really like being there and embracing us and, you know, showing us like, hey, listen, I'm not telling you what to do. But just look at this and look at this, and this doesn't work this way, but this may work. It's your choices, your decisions. But I'm just here to kind of point, and that's amazing. You know, people don't have those mentor, those figures to be able to help them to build them for success. And I think that's what's so special about the New Rainbow Coalition, is that we do have you guys there, you know, with open arms to tell us how it is, not how we want to hear it first and foremost, but to also, you know, make sure that we do it our way. And I think that's so dope.
You know, anything that we can do, you know, that's why we organize the Committee of Rainbow Elders, not to, you know, control you or anything, but give our advice, that we can all work together here. And, you know, well, we're just happy to do what we can do.
No, I appreciate you, man. Listen, I'm gonna make my way to Alabama pretty soon. I gotta make my way to Chicago before that. So maybe I actually got to talk to you behind the scenes about going to Chicago pretty soon. So maybe I can get you to come over there to an event we're trying to do. So I'll definitely reach out behind the scenes about that.
Yeah, I'm interested. You should say that too, because I'm putting together a group to do a history of Uptown.
Okay.
We're going to have a history of Uptown exhibits and everything. So I'll be getting up there, you know, soon too.
Okay. That's pretty cool. You know what? Like I said, we can talk behind the scenes. I think that the New Era Young Lords of Chicago, I think they'd be able to help you out with some of the stuff.
Sure they can. Yeah. That'd be great.
I think that'd be cool. Yeah, I think that's something. I think they'll be more than happy to be on board. I mean, I don't want to throw them out there, but I know they're listening right now, and I'm pretty sure they'd be stoked to work on a project in the Uptown area.
Oh, we need them. We need you folks to help, because it's going to be quite a program. Festival is what it's going to be. So, you know, with music, film, we're going to have all kinds of meetings and panels and just all kinds of things.
All right, cool. Looking forward to that. So I want to thank you again, Hai, for sitting down with us, telling us your story. Hearing it from you was really dope. You know, sometimes I feel like I wish I was back in the 60s, but then I think about it, I'm like, nah, I probably wouldn't have made it past a certain age, especially knowing myself. So I'm kind of happy I made it out, made it where I made it at in the generation that I made it in. But hearing you guys' stories. But hearing you guys' stories, man, is so inspiring. And I gotta listen. tip my hat to you. You know, you guys definitely deserve your flowers, especially while you guys are still here. And that's what I try to do. I try to, you know, give you guys your flowers because you guys deserve it. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing today, especially as the Rainbow Coalition, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't join forces with Cha and Fred. So it's key that we embrace you guys and really give you guys your roses while you're here.
Well, we don't look for gratification, but thank you so much.
I know you don't look for it, but
yeah.
you know what?
Yeah.
You can also you should don't worry about receiving it. You ain't gotta look
Yeah.
for it, but as long as it's coming, you can take a little bit of it right here.
That's okay. When you see me, you can buy me a beer.
I got you. But thank you again, Hi.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. You have a good night.
Yeah. All power to all the people.
All power to the people and pa'lante.